Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Getting Hammered. I'm your host, Mary Catherine Ham. I am here with my co-host, Vic Mattis of the Washington Free Beacon. There's a bunch going on. RFK endorsing Trump, Trump on Theo Von's show, Kamala Harris changing her mind about everything but never talking to the press. That's the one thing she hasn't changed her mind about. We got some people stuck in space, which I still haven't talked about, but I feel like we need to, even though it scares me even to talk about it and think about it. Okay, but oh, and obviously an Israel update. But before we get to all that, Vic, how's it going?
Hello, Mary Catherine. Doing fine. Finally had, at long last, an uneventful weekend, spending time with our family all together. We were all scattered to the four winds. So now we're all back together again. And it was great because I finally, now that summer is beginning to come to an end now, right? Kids are going back to school, some already. I can finally let you know that I now know from my daughter what brat summer means.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yes, apparently it's already over,
Oh, well,
but I took some notes. And this is
okay.
what I wrote down. Ready? Brat summer, colon, Charlie XCX, hot mess, lime green.
There
That's
you
it.
go.
That's what I have.
Honestly, that's all you need to know. Here's the thing that's great about even our current era of politics.
Yes.
Is that once a politician uses something that was cool,
They kill it.
it's immediately not cool. And that goes for Democrats as well as Republicans. Like
Yeah.
Republicans don't try as often, which should get them points because you shouldn't try. You shouldn't
Yeah.
try to be brat.
Yeah.
Um,
I think in general, it's whenever adults will say something just because it comes out of their mouth and in their voice, it just kind of taints it. It
yeah,
ruins it.
I don't be telling my kids things are skibbity. I don't do that.
That's right. Wow, I missed that. How about? Oh, I'll say. Oh, that's totally sus. Oh, that drives them nuts, especially since it's no longer. Oh, here's what. Apparently, the new word now, which means it's not going to be a new word now that I'm saying it is demur, demurring.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
demure.
See?
Demure is a whole thing.
Yeah.
And here's the thing about that. I was sure that Kamala Harris was going to use demure at the DNC,
Wow.
thereby killing it before I even got time to figure out what it was.
Couldn't even get out of the United Center instead.
But she didn't actually. And to my
Yeah.
knowledge, her social media team did not. Actually, a missed opportunity to kill one in the crib, which they like
Yes.
to do.
Yes.
So,
Oh.
ah,
I thought, do I go there? Oh no, she's gonna go there. Of
No,
course.
I'm gonna
no,
go.
I'm
Anyway,
gonna leave it to my co-host.
so
Yeah.
so demure is a little frustrating because on one hand, as a person who likes language, but who also likes accuracy, the things they're describing are not demure.
It's not demure at
right?
all.
That's not what demure
Right.
means. However, I like the flexibility of slang, and I think it's interesting when things become different things.
It's
and like
morphing. It's changing.
the evolution
right.
of the word.
Right. Peruse. I think peruse initially meant to really go carefully through a text.
Yeah.
And now it's like, do. Let me just go lightly skim.
And then some of the evolutions I hate, right? Like when
Yeah.
they decide that irregardless is fine to say.
Oh,
just
no,
because
you
everybody
can't do
messes
that.
it up.
No, I refuse.
That's not okay. We
It's
shouldn't.
not okay.
Decline is a choice.
Yeah, That's right.
And then there's
That's
changes like when Merriam-Webster decided to change the definition of sexual orientation
Oh,
just
no.
to screw
Yeah.
with a Republican's nominee to the Supreme Court,
Yeah.
which is very shady. I hate when they do that stuff. So certain evolutions I don't like.
Yeah.
Demure's kind of fun, but I did find out in perusing these two slang terms that unfortunately I must report to you that I'm much more brat than demure.
Okay. All right.
I'm a hot mess.
Hot mess.
I am
A
not
hot mess.
mindful.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. What about lime green? I don't know what lime green
I
is.
can't wear
Okay.
lime green.
Oh,
My
is that-
kids
that's
can.
what it is. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, all I know is I got the Riz, and
Oh,
now it's too
obviously
late.
you do.
And
Yeah.
it's too late. To
We
have the
both
Riz.
are blessed or cursed, whichever way you look at it, with just a
Yes.
huge
But-
quantity of Riz.
Now, Mary Catherine, how are you?
All the children listening to this right now are cringing.
That's right. Oh,
Um,
it's totally cringe.
I'm okay, but listen, y'all, listen. I'm totally solo for the week.
Oh man.
And by that, I mean, Steve got called out of town for a trip,
hmm
and it happens to be on the same week that my au pair had a vacation planned.
Oh.
So
You have a literal handful.
I'm very brat right now dealing with this. And by that, I mean dropping all the balls in a total hot mess. So It's good. We're having fun. Steve left Saturday, the au pair left Sunday morning, so I'm just, like, doing my thing, and I get a little wild, I wanna, like, go out
Yeah,
and do lots of things.
sure.
So on the first day, of course, we do, like, you know,
Oh, man.
drop off the au pair at Union Station, then we
Uh-huh.
go to a park, then we go to Barnes& and Noble, then we come home for nap, then we have lunch, and then I decide that we're going to IKEA because I need curtains. So
Did you all go through, Union Station, or you just dropped her off?
no, just dropped
Okay,
her off. I
yeah,
was explaining to the girls how it used to be like a fun,
yeah,
bustling mall.
yeah,
It no
yeah.
longer
I
is.
took my son there when he was very small just to kill time. Give Kate, a break
Mhm.
from, having, everybody at the house, and it was nice, you know?
You wouldn't do that now. Not the place to kill time anymore.
They're
So
working on it, yeah.
so we went to Barnes& and Noble, we
Oh,
went to
yeah,
IKEA, we had
nice.
dinner at IKEA because I was like, "Here we
Wait a
are at
minute.
this Swedish restaurant,
I was
let's."
gonna say, hold on. I thought the only thing that IKEA had were the free Swedish meatballs and ginger snaps. You're saying there's an actual cafe?
Oh, there's a whole cafeteria situation now.
Okay.
Yeah. You can get a
Wow.
whole meal in there.
Okay.
So we got my meatballs, we got lingonberry, we got all the things.
Lincolnberry, yes, that's how very IKEA of you. Do you sit in IKEA furniture, or is it like
Well, I let the kids didn't do too much. They were
Uh-huh.
they were, by the way, so impressed with IKEA. They're like, "Oh my gosh, look at all these
Yeah,
bedrooms. They're so
they're
beautiful,
so
mom.
beautiful, right,
When we have our
amazing.
own bedroom, can we come shop here?" And I'm like, "Actually, yes, that would be reasonable." So we went all through
Would
there.
be.
And by the time I had told one kid that she could spend some of her birthday money on something in IKEA,
Yes, yes.
but wrangling 4 kids inside IKEA is tough, and we couldn't get back to the kids section because we had the babies, but she found something not in the kids section that she liked. It
Okay.
was just like a little statuette kind of thing,
Right.
and she grabbed one, and "That's great. That's perfect. Bring it with you to the checkout." So we bring it there, and there was a display with like 10 of them up
Uh-huh,
there. She grabs one and brings it over to the checkout, and I'm
uh-huh.
like, hitting our limit. We gotta blast out of here. We gotta get out of the
Yeah.
store. And I try to ring everything up, and the little figurine doesn't have a barcode. So I was like, so
Oh, that never fails, by the
I was
way.
like, it was pretty close to where we were. So I was like,
Mhm,
go grab another one, big girls, and run back here, and I
mhm.
will get it for you. They go get another one. That one also has no barcode. And I call help and I say, hey, my daughter wants to buy this. Can we do something about this? It doesn't have a barcode. And she's like, oh, those are just for display. You have to go get the ones in the boxes that are da 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 da
Oh,
da. And I was like,
come on.
ma'am, I have 4 children. If we can't ring this up, she doesn't get
Yeah,
the figurine. And like, we'll figure that out. But
yeah,
if there's a way
yeah.
for you to ring this up so that I can just pay you $7 for this thing,
Yes, can we
I
just do
would
that?
love it.
Yeah.
And she found a way to do it. And that saved us from my oldest, having to deal with the heartbreak of not
Yeah,
getting.
the heartbreak of not what this must have been an amazing figurine.
I mean, it's actually pretty cool. It's like one of those, like, it's like a form that moves
Oh,
in
yeah,
various
sure,
directions.
okay.
So it's like you would use it to draw human figures, to use it to understand how
Oh,
muscles
got
and
it.
things
Yeah, yeah,
work.
yeah. Oh, well, that's interesting.
Anyway, it's very cute.
Yeah.
So we did that, and after that day, I was so tired I could barely wash my face before I went to bed, and I've decided that I am now going to count the number of times I lift my children during a day and use it to
That's
justify
exercise. Yeah.
never working out.
That no, you're working out during the whole day. It
Because let me
counts.
tell you, you wanna guess what a total might look like?
What?
No, I'm
How
just
much
get
weight
I'm not
what
I don't know
how
yet.
many times or how many pounds you're lifting?
How many times of lifting?
Oh my for 1 day?
Yeah.
20? 30? How many
So
times?
by 11:15 today, I was
Uh-huh.
at 30 with 4 sets of stairs. Now, I'm ambitious
Yeah,
with my
but
kids,
it
so
is a lot. Yeah, yeah.
we go places, which
Mhm.
means when you go places, you gotta lift them into the car, you gotta get them out of
Yes.
the car, you gotta you're coaxing them to do different things, but still, 30 by 11 AM?
That's you can see me, I'm shaking my head,
No
listeners.
wonder I'm tired. Okay.
No. It's good for the guns, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, shall we talk about politics?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. RFK Jr.
Yes.
has
Big news.
dropped his third-party bid for the presidency. Obviously, as a third-party candidate, even though he had significant percentages for quite some time, he had up to like 12 and 15% at
Yeah, there was a
times
moment.
in polling. it's really hard to get on ballots outside of the two-party system, man, and the other parties will work against you to
Yeah,
keep you off ballots,
that's what they
even
have
if you're a
lawyers
guy
for.
who has a lot of money, which RFK is,
Sure.
RFK Jr. is. So he's abandoning that, and by the time he abandoned it, I think he was, like, down at 5% in some polls, like,
Yeah.
around there.
Yeah.
He decided to endorse Donald Trump, and that happened to me, this is the interesting part.
Hmm.
Kamala's rolling out of her Brat Summer convention, wearing lime green, feeling great. The coverage is everything. In fact, actually, we should just play a real quick clip because this will allude to something we're going to talk about later. Here's Kelly O'Donnell, an anchor for a news program, asking Kamala Harris as she's leaving the arena an important question. Madam Vice President, how do you feel tonight?
Feel good. Now on to tomorrow.
Good to see you last night, yeah.
Congratulations to you. Good to see you. Governor Walz, Mrs. Walz, congratulations.
Thank you. It felt good. It felt good. I mean, listen, we've got 75 days to go, so maybe for better and for worse, that's the way I am. Like, that was good, and now we got to move on.
Yeah,
What to do? Enjoy one night. Nice to see you guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. It's
Congratulations.
good to see you guys.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Nice to see you, Sheila. Governor Walz, congratulations, sir.
How are you feeling?
Do you
How
think?
do you feel?
Yeah, that's a good one because it's open ended, and she could say maybe she was hoping she would say, "I'm feeling really nervous because I haven't really taken any serious questions from the media, and I really don't want to debate Donald Trump, which is why I'm going to change the rules and have the open mic." But no, or she could say, "Good, I'm feeling
Good.
good. I'm
Feel
good."
good.
Now, let me ask you this, Mary Catherine,
Yes.
because other reporters I've heard also do the "How are you?" Congratulations. She also is congratulations to you and
Mhm.
Governor Walz,
Mhm.
and how are you feeling? The first question is this just a courtesy, a press courtesy, because you just got the official nomination per se ceremonially? So this is part of your honeymoon. We're going to grant you this one day where we say, you get a break and we get to say, the press is on your side for one moment and say congratulations. Do you think that's what it is?
Look, I think there is room for a Super Bowl type question,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
Although, arguably, even the questions that Super Bowl winners get
Hmm.
are more detailed and interesting than this one, right?
Yes.
So I think there's that. But you don't get that courtesy when you have given no courtesy to press or the American people by answering any
Mhm.
questions. So this is your first shot at her, and you can't come up with anything with any interest in it or any like teeny little pushback other than literally how are you feeling and congratulations.
Congratulations.
I mean, that's wild.
I think two things. Either one, she this is the I wouldn't say the long con, but if she wants to snag, if Kelly O'Donnell and NBC want to snag a real interview with her where then they could finally get her, Lester Holt style, then she's going to be nice and sweet talk her way into that circle so they'll think, oh, she's maybe on our side and we could do this. And in fact, as you know, we've already been hearing that the Harris campaign has been asking around who should the
Yeah,
vice
no,
president
let's
talk to,
let's
which we'll get to
let's
that.
pause.
Or,
Let's
or,
go ahead.
okay, or the other possibility is that she didn't want to ruin her special day.
Little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Let's get back to them
Yeah.
debasing themselves later because there's plenty to talk
Mhm.
about. But my point being, she's riding this high. She's
Yeah.
coming out. She's getting that very tough question coming out of the arena. And the next day, or was it? Yeah, by
It
the
is the
next
next
day,
day.
the
Yeah.
news had broken that
Yeah.
RFK Jr. was endorsing Donald Trump. Now,
Yep.
this is a large story. Now, the press can do its best to pretend it's not a large story, but it's a pretty large story to have bagged that endorsement,
Mhm.
which got pretty decent saturation coverage for a brief period over the weekend while she was supposed to be getting her
The bounce.
post-convention more tongue bass because that's all she
Mhm.
gets. But like,
You're so edgy and spicy today, Mary
that's
Catherine.
all she gets.
Yeah.
But that was a moment where she was supposed to be riding that high, and then he managed to counter program in a very interesting way. Now, we can sort of break down whether we think it's going to matter or whether that's effective or what it means. Does it turn off more voters than it gathers? I think that's worth talking about. But the news story itself as a tactical
Yeah.
accomplishment, pretty decent.
I think it's basically returning the favor of Trump having a very, very successful convention, last half of his speech notwithstanding, and then having Biden announce he's out.
Yeah.
Because and that became the news as well, and
I
then
mean,
suddenly it
certainly
was all about Trump, and that
that was a
tr
news coup,
yeah,
shall we say, of
huge.
its
It was
own.
huge, yeah, it was huge, and it lasted forever, and then everybody forget about it, nobody really even cared about the assassination attempt
Oh,
anymore, and the fact that,
nobody cares
he had
about that anymore.
survived that. Instead, it was all about, Kamala Harris and the wind in their the new wind in their sails.
So
Yeah.
what do we think about what that portends or does not?
Well, I think it's interesting because you're right about the press trying to downplay it, and I think at most they're gonna say his endorsing Trump, his getting out of the race and endorsing Trump would be negligible, and I would say at the very least, it doesn't hurt Trump, and at the best, it would tip the scales because as you're saying, he was polling much better RFK earlier in his campaign, and at this point, maybe he's 4 to 6%. I don't see a lot of it's not like we have a lot of polls in every single state. And the problem I mean, we certainly know how RFK was performing whenever they did a breakdown in swing states of just what you would see, of course, is Trump versus Biden, and then Trump, Biden, third party, right? And
Right.
RFK. And you saw those numbers and have an impact. If he's now pulling in maybe 4 to 6% and maybe 60% or 70% of those voters go to Trump and the rest go to Kamala at best for her,
Mhm.
I think that is going to make a difference in battleground states, whether it be Pennsylvania or Michigan, Wisconsin, or wherever, or out in the Southwest. I think because they're going to do their best now, the Harris campaign, to not necessarily vilify RFK, but to certainly turn him into a joke, a kook,
Right.
and sort of like, oh, here are all the crazy things he says. And you know what? He's weird, and so is Trump, and so is Vance, and it's like three peas in a very weird pot. That's what I think. What do you think?
Well, let me agree with Aaron Burnett here, who says I find it a little confusing when in a very, very tight election in a very tightly divided country,
Yeah.
a guy who has near universal name recognition and 5 to 6% in swing
Mhm.
states, and you say this makes no difference. Like that feels like protesting just a little too much.
Yeah.
And so Aaron Burnett says, overall, if you're looking at national polls, perhaps this is not a big deal. But, quote, actually, if that is the case in swing states, it's huge. It's everything. It is more than the margin between Harris and Trump in some of those states. So, yeah, look, now that doesn't mean that every single one of his percentage points and every single one of his voters moves to Trump. But it does mean that the sort of trendy term is like creating a permission structure. He
Yeah.
has very literally created the permission structure to go from him to support for Trump.
That's
And
right.
he's done it by bashing the, dare I say, anti-democracy vibes of the Kamala Harris campaign.
Right.
And he switched from Biden to Harris. And I thought that part of his speech at this event was pretty effective. Let's play that little bit.
Instead of showing us her substance and character, the DNC and its media organs engineered a surge of popularity for Vice President Harris based upon, well, nothing. No policies, no interviews, no debates, only smoke and mirrors and balloons in a highly produced Chicago circus. There in Chicago, a string of Democratic speakers mentioned Donald Trump 147 times just on the first day. Oh, who needs a policy when you have Trump to hate? In contrast, at the RNC convention, President Biden was mentioned only twice in 4 days.
Now, is that effective because I'm already annoyed by that? Partly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just back to that.
But his grievances are legitimate. He did want to reach out. I think by nature, obviously, he's a liberal Democrat and he has very particular views, but he was not welcome in a primary to challenge Joe Biden, right? And they made it very difficult for him, and he was litigated against so that he couldn't get on ballots in a lot of these states. So I'm sympathetic to that. And he says, well, if they wouldn't give me the time of day, and in fact, they were downright hostile, to my presence and the media won't even grant me an interview, then obviously I think the fix is in, and then fine. I'm going to support the guy who is, I think, going to do a better job because, he is being challenged by these forces that are trying to prevent, the people from, casting, expressing their will and expressing their votes. So I do think, again, it could backfire. There are a lot of RFK voters who obviously are not Republican. They're not
Yeah.
conservative. But if they go after RFK in such a hostile way and or being very dismissive and say all his supporters are kooks, that's not going to help them win them over to have them vote for Kamala Harris. They might dig in and it could backfire, and then they'll end up supporting Trump.
Well, perhaps most harsh on RFK Jr. was his own family.
Yeah.
So let me read that
The
statement.
Kennedy clan.
This comes from Carrie Kennedy on her Twitter account. Statement on Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s announcement today. We want an America filled with hope and bound together by a shared vision of a brighter future, a future defined by individual freedom, economic promise, and national pride. We believe in Harrison Walls. Our brother Bobby's decision to endorse Trump today is a betrayal of the values that our father and our family hold most dear. It is a sad ending to a sad story. And it's signed Kathleen Kennedy Townsend, Courtney Kennedy, Kerry Kennedy, Chris Kennedy, Rory Kennedy.
You did that in almost I were you tempted to read it in a little bit more of a New Englandy
Maybe.
lilt?
I don't
Yes,
do
because it was pretty good.
I don't do that accent very well, so I can't claim that one. I cannot manifest that one, but
Yeah.
this is to me, such a perfect encapsulation of modern liberalism.
Yeah.
Which is, it literally matters not one bit
Yeah.
what nasty behavior, what disgusting things, what illegal and immoral kind of person
Mhm.
and behavior you engage in,
Mhm. Yeah.
which is like a little bit grammatically incorrect, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. As long as you are a good liberal Democrat,
Right.
you can leave a woman in a body of
Oh.
water in your
Oh.
car that you drove her drunk into,
Yeah.
and you can be the lion of the Senate.
Yep.
Ed Kennedy, you can be a president who, although at this point, John Kennedy, I would vote for you on tax policy and all that stuff way before I'd vote for Kamala. But
Oh,
you
yeah.
can be
Oh,
you can be
JFK
a
originally? Yeah.
president who womanized to extreme extents,
Mhm.
who reportedly sexually harassed and abused interns. This is actually Kennedy I'm talking about. I haven't
Yeah.
moved to Clinton yet. But there was a book out in the last couple of years about what he did with young women who worked at the White House, and it was horrendous.
Mhm.
And it's not gotten pushback from the Kennedy family.
Right.
Well, it's true.
That's right. Yeah, that book, yeah.
Because it's true. You
Right.
can, if you're Joe Kennedy, make your living and your riches being a
Mhm.
bootlegger.
Yeah.
No one will have jack to say about it.
And sympathetic to a Nazi regime.
That too.
Yeah.
You can also put one of your daughters who had slight developmental disabilities
Oh,
in
man.
a home.
You're off to the races here,
No, I
Mary
just-
Catherine. Yeah.
I
It's
have
just-
always been on the Kennedys are trash
Yeah,
train.
yeah.
And like the idea, this is what liberals do.
I
The only thing that ticks them off enough
betrayal.
to betray their
Mhm,
family member
mhm.
is him being not a good liberal Democrat. That's it.
I have to tell you a funny story that I don't think I've shared live or on air, which was the late Christopher Hitchens. And I happened to run into him at a bar in New York City. So we were sitting next to each other, and Kate was there too. And we were talking about Teddy Kennedy, who had just passed. And Hitchens says he was talking about the priest who was giving the eulogy, at the end. And he
Right.
said that, and now Teddy is in a far better place with Jack and Bobby and Joe. And then Hitchens says to me, how the F does it get better than Hyannisport? Anyway, I just thought it was very funny.
I have a Kennedy family story,
Ooh.
which is that one time I was invited to some gathering, some gala. O'Reilly had a table. So Bill O'Reilly
Oh,
had a
yeah.
table at some fancy dinner for the Kennedy Foundation, whatever sort of global nonprofit work they do, which truly does support some very heroic people who do
Yeah.
pro-freedom work and human rights work all over the globe, right? So I go to this dinner just because he had extra seats, right? And
Yes.
I'm at this dinner and like all the Kennedy grandkids are there. So it's like the the generation that's sort of my age, slightly younger, and the young Kennedys, am looking at the program and like I assume that they are the award presenters. That's
Okay,
fine, right? That makes
sure,
sense. And of course, many of the people getting awards are incredibly brave, impoverished people
sure.
from developing countries who are often people of color,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
They're the opposite of Kennedys, is what they are.
Yeah.
Okay. And what I realize when they start presenting awards is that the Kennedy grandchildren are going to be reading testimonials in first person as if they are these heroes
Oh, no. Okay.
from the stage. So you've got the
Yeah,
richest,
yeah.
whitest
Uh-huh.
people
Imagining that they are.
in the world
Yeah.
reading the first person heroics of these other people. And I thought, okay, well, perhaps if these are written statements and they're really beautiful and they're powerful,
Yeah.
it makes sense for them to read them if those people couldn't make it to the
Mhm.
room. No, those people are in the room.
They're just not reading it
There's
themselves.
people are in
It's
the
not it's
room.
being
They're
read to
just
them.
they're not considered up to snuff for reading those. Now, also perhaps they don't speak English. No, several of them spoke English because several of them said thank you after
Yeah.
after
Well,
the
maybe
Kennedy grandchildren had read their stories of heroism and
maybe
harrowing daring do in front of everyone.
well, maybe they thought it would be extra special having a Kennedy say their words, you know? I mean, it's like George Clooney playing the role of somebody who's, and then that
Like that
person's
I
there.
feel like
That's
that was
kind of
like
exciting.
2008 or 9, and it
Yeah.
was sort of pre the privilege conversation.
Yeah.
But as they
On the
say with
cusp.
another P word that you know it when you see it, that was my privilege moment.
Wow.
When you see
Yeah.
it, you will know what it is. And it was one of the least self-aware moments I've ever seen.
Do you remember, did you see the young redheaded Joe Kennedy? They're the future and now former congressman?
I believe he was there, but
Right.
he might have already been a congressman at that point.
Uh-huh.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure that he was an up and comer still, or if
Yeah.
what his status was at that point.
Before
But
he
anyway,
decided to take on Ed Markey in a Senate primary
anyway.
and lose.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh yeah. Didn't was he the one that ran into something at the Capitol and got arrested?
Hard to tell.
I mean, they
Hard to
all
tell.
do
Yeah, I
eventually.
know.
Okay. So the point
The
being,
point being,
Kennedy's
yeah,
really
yeah, with the
Kennedy's.
exception of RFK.
Okay, but
Sorry.
on the electoral, I do
Okay,
have
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah,
rant.
yeah.
I
Of
have to
course.
rant
I
about the
know. No,
Kennedys
no, no,
whenever I
no.
get a
No,
chance.
this
But
is a big deal.
I do have to rant about speak about the electoral viability of this. There's been some talk about how this is
Yeah.
all super online dudes are the only people who care about this kind of thing, and
Mm.
I want to push back on that a little bit because there is a segment of women who are, I'm just going to use the casual term of like red pilled on healthcare,
Oh, okay,
red
sure.
pilled on nutrition,
Mhm.
and yes, sometimes red pilled on vaccines,
Facts. Yeah.
which got accelerated by the COVID vaccine and the
Yeah.
fact that they recommended it for children and the fact that they didn't
Right.
have really the supportive
Mhm.
data to do so. So it made people think
They didn't
other
want people
things.
to work or school or anything else. I mean, they
Yeah.
tried to push for many. They couldn't, but in many cases, like in the military, you know, people
Yeah.
lost their positions. Yeah.
So if you're like a mom who's like not really like an almond mom, but a mom who's like trying to give your kids basically healthy food, finding it difficult and
Mhm.
expensive to do so, found the COVID regime to be oppressive and untrustworthy.
Right.
There is a segment of women voters. Now, I don't know if they're almost certainly like low propensity voters, right? I don't know for a fact. I don't know all the demographics.
Right.
I know this demographic in real life.
Yeah.
And the sort of Pied Piper for this demographic is House and Habit, which is a huge Instagram account
Okay.
that I actually wonder how much she had to do with orchestrating this
Mm.
because she is close or has access
Yeah.
to both RFK and Trump. But her following is huge female following.
All right.
And she's a person who was, for instance, skeptical of mainstream coverage of Epstein, skeptical of mainstream coverage of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, skeptical of mainstream coverage of COVID and RFK and all these things. Okay.
Right.
So she's a person who sort of has sway
Yeah.
with many women in that group. Again, I don't know what this translates into, but I I do think it's worth noting that it's not just dudes who are red pilled on nutrition.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Although I think Make America Healthy Again, although a laudable and interesting discussion to have because the government is terrible on nutrition and always has been, aligning with like President Happy Meal.
Yes.
Excuse me, Big Mac meal. I don't mean to be condescending. I know he eats like a big burger. That's fine.
He does. And the occasional fillet of fish, which he called the fish delight.
Yeah. And look, I also love fast
Yeah.
food. I sort of do both things, right? I like some trash food every now and then, but I do like to keep my kids and my family
Well,
healthy, and I do not listen to the government about such things.
It's
Anyway.
it ultimately comes down, by the way, to good genes because he obviously has very good genes that he can
Oh, yeah.
withstand with that kind of a diet. That's something.
Speaking
It's
of
not
genes
everybody.
and
Yeah.
family and all of that, another interesting conversation that Trump had this week
Oh, yeah.
was with Theo Von,
Yeah.
who is a comedian turned podcaster who's has a huge following. Again, I think he has like 3 million listeners probably ish. I looked it up briefly, and you can never know exactly with these folks exactly what the numbers are, but Rogan adjacent, a
Sure.
popular guest on many people's
Yeah.
podcasts,
Huge
a
following.
a recovering addict,
Mhm.
and much like other appearances that Trump has done, like with streamers, popular streamers, his son Barron is telling him that he should go on these shows, which I
Oh.
actually think is good
Mhm.
if he'll listen to Barron because he
Yeah.
does have an audience
Yes.
in these areas that is, and in this case, unlike House and Habit, yes,
Yeah.
many male,
Dudes.
like
Yeah.
largely male
Right.
audience. He counter-programmed the DNC a bit with this conversation in which he talks about addiction
Yeah.
with Theo Von. And
Right.
here's the part that everyone's talking about.
Well, how did
No, I would just do cocaine. That was really,
well,
yeah. So not
That's
just,
pretty-
yeah.
that's
And it was-
that's down and dirty, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it was, yeah.
But you don't anymore?
No, I don't do it anymore, man. And I'm not doing
Is
it.
it too much? Too much to handle?
Some of the stuff started to get a real rattle in it too. I don't know where we were even getting it from in this country, but yeah, it started to make me feel like I was a mechanic or
So
something.
the thing you go back to then is alcohol for the most part.
Right. Yeah. But what I want probably is cocaine, but I know that if I have a drink, then it'll like, be like, okay, well, I had a drink, then I can do this.
Is cocaine a stronger
Oh yeah.
up?
Yeah. Cocaine
So,
will make
you're way up with cocaine more than anything else you can think of.
Cocaine will turn you into a damn owl, homie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You'll be out on your own porch, you know, and you'll be your own street lamp. You're freaking,
And is that a good feeling? Well,
No,
it's
horrible.
a miserable feeling.
but you do
As
it
you-
anyway, just like the guy you're saying with the scotch.
Cocaine will make you into an owl, homie.
Yeah, right. What does that mean, an owl? Because, it's funny, the owl has come up in the past in that famous Hunter Biden profile where he was driving that rental car out in the Southwest somewhere, and he said he was being chased by the owl. And at the end of the entire anecdote said, actually, not really sure if the owl actually existed, but he thought it was an owl. And then here it is again. And again, it's drug related.
Look, I appreciate your encyclopedic knowledge of the Hunter Biden oeuvre. No, so Theo Von, that's what you'll say about a lot of Theo Von anecdotes or jokes. Is like, what does that actually mean? But you're not really sure.
Yeah.
But
Like a night owl.
but it feels right.
Right.
And he is one of the most delightful, likable people there is. Period. Like he's just, I find him to be, speaking of Riz, I just find him to be incredibly likable. So I love these two talking about this. I love that it's a human moment for Trump, in which it's kind of interesting to hear a guy who has never had anything
Right.
wonder about, okay, what does that look like? And of course, in his family, which he also talks about,
Yeah. That's the connection.
he's talking about his brother Fred and why he saw his brother be an alcoholic, and that's what led him to never drink or smoke.
Right.
So actually, very interesting. It went viral during the DNC, which is a bit of an accomplishment to
Mhm.
have that. And I just think Trump is maybe getting a little less credit than he deserves for doing this kind of programming.
Yeah, it's funny how it came into my feed and I didn't know who Theo Von was. And I kept on wondering, is there a second part to his last name? Like Theo Von what? Because, I mean, I did just come back from Germany. So like von Gutenberg, I don't know what. Freiherr von und zu, I don't know. But interesting. And the thing that got across to me was Trump seemingly genuine in his exchange with Theo Von. And obviously, because as you mentioned about his brother and that Trump doesn't drink or smoke, maybe that's why he has the added advantage of being able to, survive on McDonald's because, unlike me, I do enjoy drinking. So on occasion, in case a doctor or a health insurer is listening, just, once a year. But I'm like, that's, the other side of Trump. And, you and I know people who have met one on one with the former president, and he can be very engaging
Yeah.
and funny and also normal. So if you watch the documentary, you can still I think you could still catch it on Netflix or somewhere else. Get me Roger Stone. Trump is featured in an interview format throughout the documentary, and he's just talking like a normal person. So what does that mean? For me, it's like then he gets on stage and then he has to put on this persona and do this
Right.
thing. And it's Dana, George Slopadopoulous, and I don't know if that means that he thinks that he needs to do that to keep the fuel, for his fire. But obviously, if he was more like this, I think he'd win over more people.
Yes, I agree. And this sort of gave him the opportunity to be just a little bit more, yeah, just like telling
You know?
normal stories about his
Yeah.
family. Vaughn opened asking him about his kids. What do you admire about your
Yeah.
kids? And it was a very nice conversation, just and revealing in a way that like you the press right now with Kamala, and we'll get to that, is being neither revealing by asking her interesting questions like
No.
Theo Von would, or adversarial questions,
No.
right? We're getting neither. But anyway, it's worth listening to. The podcast is called This Past Weekend, and just so you know, because I just found this out myself, Theo Von just sort of popped into my social media feeds,
Mhm.
and I find him totally delightful,
Yeah.
hilarious, very charming. He is, and he has sort of like a naivete about him, just a sort of like goofball vibe that I
Sure.
enjoy very much. His name, since you asked, is
Yes.
Theodore Kapitani von Kernatowski III.
Ha! There
And
you go. Yeah.
that the name comes from Poland,
Uh,
and
but Yvonne,
his
very
parents are
interesting.
Polish and Nicaraguan. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
So
Fascinating.
that's Theo Von. I do recommend him just for fun. And look, here's the thing. All these folks who are, by the way, he asked about the health stuff. He asked about one thing I appreciated about the Vaughn interview is he asked about opioid addiction. He
Yeah.
asked about, and this is something that Kennedy touched on too. He asked about pharmaceutical companies being allowed to advertise on TV in America as they are not allowed to do anywhere else, and what that means and how lobbyists have a lot of control.
Mhm.
He talked about price transparency for healthcare. And you can call RFK and Trump weird, kooky, whatever.
Mhm.
Vaughn, frankly, is a little kooky too. Like these are
Yeah.
entertainers. But people who are outside the mainstream
Yeah.
sort of are kooky by default
Right.
or are labeled as such.
Mhm.
And there are plenty of people who have plenty of questions about these very real issues who are listening to these people talk.
Right.
So
That's
anyway,
right. I'll
that
also
doesn't mean
throw
it
in
doesn't come with many downsides. There are
No, I was gonna say that I'll also throw in Rodney Dangerfield's great quote, which is, "The only people you think are normal are people you don't know well enough." So, we're all weird in different ways.
Yeah. But I think to just dismiss all of it is probably a mistake.
Yeah,
Um,
but it's also maddening for, Trump and Vance are willing to talk to as many people as possible, anybody. I mean, we're talking about Kristen Welker or anybody in the press, the mainstream media. They're happy to, go on, and obviously, needless to say, Fox and Harris Walter are avoiding the press like the plague. What are they thinking about? They're going to do one interview, and it's got to be the two of them together. And one interview before what? One interview before the election, or one interview before the debate?
no, here's the thing. And look, again, this is the thing where tactically you can congratulate them for
Uh-huh.
having pulled off this ridiculous move.
Yeah,
Where now the
it's
standard is
amazing.
I'm going to give one interview. Who will it go to?
Right.
Who?
The highest bidder.
Yeah, who will it go to? And then once she does that interview, I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, look, you right wingers were all complaining, and then
Yeah,
she
and
did
here's
this
how amazing she
interview,
was.
and why were you complaining?" Okay, let me read for you well, first I'll say this,
Yeah.
as you alluded to. Politico reported that the Harris campaign staff has been asking reporters who they think she should talk to. I I don't know if you've seen Inside Out 2, Vic.
I didn't see Inside Out 1.
Okay, you should see Inside Out
Mhm.
1 for sure.
I think the last
second,
Disney movie I might have was seen is Encanto.
the second one is also pretty good. The second one is
Encanto 2?
no.
Oh, sorry.
Why are you on Encanto? Get off Encanto.
Sorry. And then before that, Moana, which I think was
Okay.
really nice. Sorry, go ahead.
Inside
Inside
Out
Out
2 is about this young girl's feelings and the
Oh.
drama of becoming a teenager,
Oh, boy.
right?
Mm.
And there's a scene where she's a hockey player and she's trying out for a new team and she wants to be cool with the cool new team, including its captain. And it's something we've all been through as teenagers at some point where you want to make a good impression on someone. She has no idea how to do it. She is so awkward. Has no idea who she is, can't act like herself, cannot resist the temptations of social pressure, and is just making everyone in the vicinity uncomfortable by trying as hard as she's trying.
Uh-huh.
And this scenario just reminds me of that, but if there were two Rileys, like Kamala and the press are both equally cringe, and they're
Yes.
just standing across from each other, cringing at each
Right.
other
Right. Yeah, that's
all
about
the time, every day. They're succumbing to social pressures. They can't figure out how to handle themselves in their
embarrassing.
jobs.
Right.
And to that point, Jonathan Martin,
Oh, yeah.
Jonathan Martin, formerly of the New York Times, now of Politico.
Yeah.
He's one of our preeminent political reporters. Okay, Vic?
Yeah. Yeah, I know
just-
J Mart. Yeah.
Yeah, so do I. This is what he had to say about the idea that Kamala Harris has not done interviews. So one person on Twitter had said, how can you keep defending this, that she hasn't taken questions? This is for the office of the presidency. We are in 2 wars, maybe a third soon, and you don't think her voters need to know? Shameful. He says, reporter, no, I think the righty fixation with her lack of access is cover for your actual frustration, that you're stuck with a candidate incapable of driving a message after the other guys yanked off the Band-Aid and dumped their guy who couldn't drive a message. Okay.
Can't you perform a coup like we did?
There's so much going on here.
There's so much going on there.
This is
Yeah.
a reporter.
Yeah.
This is a reporter. Reporter against reporting, apparently. He uses the incorrect your. Just yay for
You
copy.
are right. Yes.
And then, look, I would suggest to Jonathan Martin and other reporters, do you wish to code right-leaning the idea of asking tough questions of people who are in power? Because that's your whole job.
Yeah.
That's your whole job.
Asking
it is
questions.
not supposed to be a partisan divide on this.
Well,
Certainly
yeah.
in the media.
Yeah.
What?
Again, though, if it came to a quote unquote normal candidate and they get to decide who is normal and who is not, then perhaps those rules would apply. But when you're talking about a threat to democracy, then all bets are off. I mean, this is again the Margaret Sullivan rule when she was the quote the ombudsman of sorts at the Washington Post at the time, which is enough trying to do both sides and being on the sidelines. Reporters, you need to take a stand for what is right and do everything you can to make sure Donald Trump is defeated. And so forget about, it has nothing to do with being unbiased and
Yeah.
and
Well, it has
impartial.
nothing to do
We're
with
all part of the same struggle and the part of the challenge, and we get to, but then ultimately they're getting to decide what is right and what is wrong, what is moral, what is, a moral monstrosity, if you will. The interesting thing is, I mean, sure, I think that what Jonathan Martin is saying, we've all fought this, or maybe not, but it comes across, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that we're not still going to want tough questions from the other side.
That's the
So
thing,
it's like a version of Republicans pounce, his reaction
Yes,
to
that's
that,
what
which
it
is
is.
let's
But,
turn it into that.
But Republicans pounce is now just,
Oh,
y'all should ask a presidential candidate who came to her position
Right.
without regular vetting.
or a single vote,
questions?
Yeah.
Questions are right coded.
Yeah.
Questions for a presidential candidate are right coded.
Now
But there's a
yeah.
reason that free speech and wide inquiry of ideas is right coded now. It's because the left and the media do not care about it. They don't care to defend it. And now the idea of reporting is going to be
Oh.
right coded. I just think this is a very bad and short-sighted idea, but I don't know. Jonathan Martin is a preeminent reporter and I am not.
He is.
So
There's a
let
very
me just
yeah.
add, he
Mhm.
tweets also from a survey by Echelon, which
I was
is
going to mention that.
run
Yeah.
by Kristen Silva-Sanderson.
Our friend.
How important is it for a presidential candidate to regularly do media interviews and answer questions from the press? 89% of Americans said it's either very or somewhat important. So I guess Jonathan Martin is bravely in the 11%.
Does he report this, by the way, being stunned, disturbed, concerned that only
About
11% think it's
well,
fine?
so what I would be concerned about if I were Jonathan Martin is that 89% of America has a righty fixation. Why does 89% of
Yeah.
America
Yeah.
concerned about this? Because it's not a righty fixation. It's
Right.
just right.
Again, it is like the Nancy Pelosi. You have to pass the bill in order to find out what's in it, and that's how they generally feel about Kamala Harris. Look, she gave a wonderful speech at the Democratic convention. She laid out her plans. End of story, and we can take her word for it. Why would
Oh,
you? Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I think we want to get into that too.
Yes, let's talk about who's taking her word for it.
Yeah.
Can we play John Carl? This is ABC's This Week.
And President Trump is going to draw a sharp contrast with Kamala Harris, who has supported things like decriminalizing illegal immigration or giving taxpayer-funded health insurance to illegal aliens or taking away health insurance on the job for 170 million Americans, banning gas cars, confiscating firearms. These are all
what do you
positions
mean
that-
taking away health insurance? What are you talking about?
She said when she ran for president that she wants to eliminate private health insurance on the job for 170 million Americans, John.
Yeah, I mean that is not her position now. She
How do you know that's not her position? How do you know that's not her position?
I mean, she says she no longer supports
she has not said
Medicare
that.
for all.
She has not said that. Okay. Maybe anonymous aides on a Friday night have said that, but the last thing that she said
but
on
this
most
was not
of
a
these
radical convention. I mean, she as you heard me go through with Bernie Sanders, she is not taking the positions of the far left of her party. She's clearly making an effort to move to the middle.
I did hear what you said to Senator Sanders, and I thought it was clear that he's very disappointed that she's taking these efforts not to change her positions, but to hide her positions, John. The American people are totally justified to conclude that Kamala Harris is a dangerous San Francisco liberal based on what she campaigned on the last time she ran for president and what this administration has done for the last 4 years. Again, you would have thought watching the Democratic convention last week that the Democrats are not in office, that they're not in power, that they're campaigning against an incumbent Republican, when in reality, she's been part of the failures of the Biden-Harris administration for 4 years. And when she campaigned for president, in her own right, she did in fact promise things like decriminalizing illegal immigration and taking away health insurance.
But that's his position she's clearly changed on, and she has said she has changed. Yes, she has.
No, she has not. John, she has not said that.
This is another preeminent political mind, Vic.
Yeah.
I've said sometimes it's like being a liberal sometimes includes certain, and also in the media, includes a sort of proud ignorance of icky facts.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, school closures, I'm not supposed to know about the science that would actually is real and would allow you to send kids back to school. Only icky people know about that.
Right.
Only icky people do research like that, right? This is similar. It would be icky to know and concede what Kamala Harris's old positions are that remain her positions because she has not actually repudiated them, which is Cotton's very clear point.
Cotton really had to put a lot of effort into getting that point across to Jonathan Karl, right? Because Karl wanted to just shut it down and say, nope, she's no longer for it, move on. And in fact, Cotton's trying to point out, you're taking leaks from staff as her word when in fact she herself has not explained why it is that she's no longer for Medicare for all, or why she is no longer against fracking or the Green New Deal or whatever it is, because she has yet to explain that. And she may or may not explain it before the debate on September 10, if that debate now even happens. And again, they're willing to take her word and the staff's word for it. And can we move on? And it's bizarre.
Actually,
and it's bizarre.
It's actually an offense for you to even hearken back to her positions of, I don't know, when she ran for president the last time.
Ancient history. All those things she said that could harm her chances of winning. And again, saving democracy, we have to just move on. And it's weird. I mean, Jonathan Karl, I remember reading and editing him in the Weekly Standard. He wrote about Sudan. He was a reporter. And but everybody just gets caught up in this whole thing. And but I don't know how he is. I'm curious how he is personally taking this. Does he feel like, oh, I'd like to think he thinks, wow, I guess I should really think about that position and consider that, maybe she hasn't changed her mind. But I'm sure in his mind it's, oh, these right
No, it's
wing.
ugh. No,
Wow,
it's
yeah,
ugh. Tom Cotton's icky.
yeah,
These thoughts are icky. I'm gonna lose my spot at the cool kids table. And by the way,
yes,
the number of spots at the cool kids table is dwindling.
yeah,
So a lot of people are trying to keep their jobs, and maybe one of the ways you do that is by asking Kamala, "How are you feeling?" instead of a
yes.
tough question,
No, that's right.
because you like woe betide the reporter who finally trips her up
Yeah.
after she's gotten this mantle. So this is why they're all throwing her.
It's like the NBC reporter who got attacked for saying that Joe Biden had serious issues when they're having an interview. And the word
Oh no, Fetterman.
Fetterman, I'm sorry
Yeah, yeah.
about that. That was Fetterman. And there's now reports, of course, from press pool about Joe Biden, because some people still want to cover the current president of the United States,
Oh,
getting into his limo on his way to Rehoboth Beach, and he was shaking, and he did not look well. And nobody seems to care about that.
nobody's let.
Or the fact that his schedule included a vacation followed by a second vacation,
Yeah,
which,
he's doing nothing right now. He
I
yes,
used to
yesterday there
say
was nothing
this.
on his schedule.
There's nothing on his schedule because, well, there's nothing going on in the world. And so there's nobody in the White House, I guess that means, because they're all there. I used to say this all the time, Mary Catherine, which is sometimes you need a vacation from the vacation.
Yeah, man. Well, only if you're president,
Ah,
you know?
the jet
Um,
lag. It's the jet lag.
Speaking of what's going on in the world,
Oh, yeah.
Israel launched a very impressive preemptive by a tiny bit strike on Hezbollah in Lebanon. Reportedly, Hezbollah was preparing to shoot into
Yes.
Israel. They have been shooting into Israel unprovoked as an
Uh-huh.
Iranian proxy ever since October 7th and before that. Okay. 70 to
And,
80,000 people who live in the north of Israel no
right.
longer live there
Right.
because of this.
And
They
you
have,
knew about this because of all the protests against Hezbollah launching all the
right,
rockets at
of course.
civilian centers. Yeah.
They also have precision guided stuff that is much more sophisticated
Yeah.
than Hamas has and far more missiles. So it is a real danger. So they got signals, Israel did, that something was coming, and they struck the areas that would shoot the missiles
Yeah.
at them. This, of course, has potential for international dum-dums to
Yes.
say that Israel is once again aggressing in some sort of way, which it is not. Defending
Escalation.
itself. By the way, there's not, and thank you to my friends at the Commentary Podcast for reminding me of this. There's not a territorial dispute in
No.
Lebanon.
Mhm.
Like, this is Lebanon, this is Israel. There's, in fact, a UN line that Hezbollah is not supposed to come south of, and yet they violate that all the time. But that's not a problem for the international community.
No.
There's no issue here about land. They're just shooting into the Jews.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah. I'll also, by the way, really quickly throw in another prop to commentary for reminding us in Kamala Harris's speech at the Democratic Convention, talking about, the Palestinians deserving their own, sovereignty, if you will, and free and fair, I think elections, whatever it was. But the fact is they already had that. They had that in 2005, and they all voted for Hamas, who then decided that we're never going to hold elections ever again. So, I mean, they have that ability to, self-government. They have that, or they had that. And again, talking about, after these particular airstrikes and actions from Israel, the fear that, Israel is going to escalate things. Somebody escalated things from October 6th to October 7th, right? And it
Right.
wasn't Israel. And the Biden-Harris strategy is, we don't want you, much like in Ukraine, we don't want you attacking the enemy on their soil. Can you please wait for them to cross the border and then take them on? So if there's a launcher with, dozens of rockets about to be launched, we would prefer that your, Patriot system or David Sling or whatever hits one-to-one targets, missile for
Right.
missile, rather than one missile of yours taking them all out on the ground, because that would be escalating. You cannot win that way.
No, it's crazy.
It's insane.
It's crazy.
Oh,
By
and
the
they
way, I
also
wanna-
arrested a hostage rescue. Were you going to mention
yes,
that?
I want to
Yeah, great.
mention that
Yeah.
Qaid Farhan al-Qadi, who was a Bedouin man, was taken
Arab
hostage from
Israeli.
yeah. What did I say?
Yeah, Bedouin, yeah.
Yeah, Bedouin
Yeah,
Israeli.
yeah.
It's Israeli. He was released, of course, found in the south of Gaza, where Israel was told not to go. But, if you're going to get back your hostages, because
Yeah.
Hamas is not at all incentivized to give them
Mhm.
back, because the international community keeps making Israel
Right.
give more things without making Hamas
Mhm.
give more things, then you got to go to the south of Gaza to get
To get
people
them.
like this poor man who has many children
Right.
and can now be back home with them.
Right. The only reason why I wanted to emphasize Arab Israeli, he was an Arab Israeli, as
Oh,
you
that's
mentioned, a Bedouin.
gotcha. Yeah,
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 yeah. But is because they want you to think that this is about Jews versus Arabs, and that they only care about themselves. But in fact, the people of Israel is, I mean, it's I think 20% of the population is Arab Israeli, and some of them serve in the IDF, and some of them are hostages along with Americans, and there's still 100 left, and we, at least 100 who have yet to be rescued, and some presumed dead. And good for Israel for getting this guy out.
He was taken hostage from his job on a kibbutz where he worked as a security guard in the southern Bedouin city of Rahat, which of course is not spared the ire of
No,
Hamas
no.
because, as you note, it's not just Jews versus Arabs, it is all Israelis being a
Yeah.
problem. And by the way, all of this undercuts the idea that Israel is some sort of racist apartheid state.
Yeah.
It's especially when you're there, by the way.
Mhm.
The idea that Israel is home of the white oppressor is very on its face.
Yeah.
Not a thing. I mean, everywhere you go,
Right.
it does not look like that.
No. Yeah.
On the
You were
beach, in the
there.
restaurants,
Yeah.
in the clubs, but it is a thing that people say incorrectly all
Yeah.
the time
Yeah.
to give them an excuse to hate Israel more. So that is good news on that front, and somewhat good news to have them. I think the good news for me about the strike is that it does seem at every strike they make, whether it's on a person
Yeah.
or munitions, they know what the hell they're striking.
Yeah.
Like very clearly.
Yeah, they're ready, and I find it also encouraging that they're able to preempt that, because it would be awful. As you mentioned, they have over 100,000 rockets, precision guided, and if you were to just wait for them to all cross your airspace and then tackle them with the help of the Sixth Fleet,
Well, and
it's not as ideal.
they'd overwhelm Iron Dome,
Yeah,
and once they've overwhelmed Iron Dome, a bunch of civilians are just getting hit
Yeah.
indiscriminately.
Did you also hear the story? The IDF is reporting that Yahya Sinwar, who is now the head of, running things for Hamas, running out of places to hide, and has been going in disguise in Gaza as a woman.
I love that. I hope
Yeah.
that's true.
And me too. It's been done, throughout history. So
Can I close by saying,
Please.
so Trump, we only got a few minutes left. Trump visited Arlington Cemetery
yes,
on the 3rd anniversary of the withdrawal from Afghanistan and the death of the 13 servicemen and women at Abbey Gate. Those 13 servicemen and women have never been honored properly by the
No.
current administration because they speak to a giant failure of that administration. Nonetheless, they should have been honored in a State of the Union or in some sort of major speech, and that has never happened.
intentionally so.
Kamala and Joe Biden both put out statements this week,
Mm.
sort of antiseptic. Trump went to Arlington for the wreath laying. He has been in touch with the parents of these young men and women over the years. Many of them feel a great sense of appreciation to him for that and loyalty to him for that. Many of them showed up at the RNC to talk
Yeah.
about it. I heard a report that one of the moms told JD Vance that when Trump gets into office and fires whoever needs to be fired over this, because still no one's been fired.
No accountability.
That they want to be in the room for the firing.
Yeah.
And how could you
don't-
begrudge a Gold Star family that?
I don't blame them. I don't blame them for that. It's not even. I understand why Biden Harris team is not. It reminds people of bad times on their watch, and they do not need that. Therefore, they're not going to mention. I don't think they mentioned Afghanistan once during the convention, right?
I don't think so.
And not only that, but it's not that it's not just that they're ignoring this awful fiasco that led to hundreds of Americans being stranded, Afghan supporters being tortured and murdered and left behind, and $4 billion worth of hardware, leaving it to terrorists. It's not just ignoring that. It's also, if you remember during the debate, Biden denying that any serviceman died on his watch. So he's just saying it didn't happen. And I mean, you can say maybe it's his forgetfulness, but I think a lot of it is you just have to deny.
And some
Yeah.
of the uproar about Trump is, of course, like, because he's using
How?
Arlington as a
Right. How
prop.
dare he? Right.
Okay. Clearly, 3 of the families of the fallen are here on this anniversary.
Yep.
They have him at a private event.
Hmm.
Clearly, they want him there.
Yeah.
Now, Trump may believe in his heart that bringing attention to this is good for his political
Sure.
ends,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But there's also been like pretty good evidence that behind the scenes he's been quite helpful to
Right.
these families, right? So I don't want to discount that. What should have happened is that Kamala and Joe Biden should also have been at this ceremony.
Right.
I
She's
bel- I
nowhere.
believe they're welcome to come, are they not?
She's nowhere to be found, and no, because again, it's bad memories, and people are going to be reminded. And you have to hope. They're hoping that the American voter is going to forget all these things. They're going to forget that the border, somehow they're going to forget that the border and the border wall, that Kamala Harris's position on that. And I don't think we touched on that, but now she's for the border wall. It's like she's pulling a reverse John Kerry, where she
Right.
was against it before she was for it. And they don't want people to remember these things. And it would be one, and Biden, of course, is taking vacation at Rehoboth Beach. He couldn't be bothered. It's not like they type out the statement themselves. And so it's one thing if Biden and Harris were going to go to Arlington and do a wreath laying and somehow Trump gets to Bigfoot them. They weren't there at all. So because they're not there, nobody should go. Good for Trump that he did it.
So here's an interesting comment from John Kirby, the White House National Security
Oh, boy.
Council spokesman, asking about Biden and Harris. He indicates that, in fact, and this cuts against the criticism of Trump quite considerably, that Biden and Harris didn't come because they weren't invited.
Oh,
He says
by
there
the
are
Gold
many-
Star families.
Kirby says there
Got
are
it.
many ways that we as a nation and our leaders can observe the 3rd anniversary of Abbey Gate, and Mr. Trump was invited by at least one, I think maybe several of the families, to lay a wreath at Arlington, and that is certainly a way to recognize the sacrifice and the loss, Kirby said. But it was a personal invitation by families, he added.
There you go.
So I would say, like, maybe don't rag on Trump for showing up at the invitation of these specific families. And I do want to quickly read their names of those
Yes,
who died
please.
that day. It was August 26th, 2021. Marine Corps Staff Sergeant Darren T. Hoover, Marine Corps Sergeant Johanny Rosario Pichardo, Marine Corps Sergeant Nicole G., Marine Corps Corporal Hunter Lopez, Marine Corps Corporal Dagan W. Page, Marine Corps Corporal Humberto A. Sanchez, Marine Corps Lance Corporal David Espinoza, Marine Corps Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz, Marine Corps Lance Corporal Riley McCollum, Marine Corps Lance Corporal Dylan Marola, Marine Corps Lance Corporal Kareem M. Nakui, Navy Petty Officer 3rd Class Maxton Soviak, and Army Staff Sergeant Ryan Naus. So God bless all their families. I know they're still going through it, and not having the recognition they deserve is not something they needed on top of it. And I hope this isn't an awkward segue, but I will say a great way to get to know families of the fallen is to join us for a 9/11 Heroes Run, because actual families, surviving families, come out and work with the Travis Manion Foundation and find ways to heal and connect with other survivors after the loss of their loved ones. And that is one of the wonderful things we do as an organization, is introduce people to each other so that they can understand these things in a more deep way. So the 911heroesrun.com, if you want to sign up and meet some of these folks in your own community. They are wonderful and a testament to all that America has to offer.
Thank you, Mary Catherine. And speaking of service to this country, also a quick note, lots of listeners have been asking about my World War II trip and how that was put together. The technical aspect of this is I just tagged along with my son through my wife's work. And these are so young professionals. It's a network of military history strategy fellows. And so that was that aspect of it. And we're not fellows ourselves, but it was a staff ride, and you get to play these different roles. Again, I was Major John Howard, and my son was Captain Joe Dawson. But the important thing that people want to know about is our guide is a historian, PhD, and former West Point current retired Colonel Brian DeToy and his lovely wife Cheryl, who does all the logistics. And they run the travel company that organizes. And the travel company is called Essential History Expeditions. They did an amazing job. They do this all the time. They do Civil War, Gettysburg, American Revolution as well. And I think World War I, but certainly World War II. So that is who did it. Check them out again. It's Essential History Expeditions.
Nice.
And that wraps up this episode of Getting Hammered. Remember, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at Victorina Mattis.
I'm at MK Hammer on Twitter, at MK Hammer Time on Instagram. You can follow the show at Getting Hammer Podcast on Instagram or YouTube. We will get more into the gaslighting about the border wall next time. There's so many things. And I swear we're going to talk about the space story sometime. I swear we are.
And Doug Emhoff's sex symbol.
Oh, gosh, we missed that one.
Yeah.
There's,
What a hunk.
You know what? There's always more media debasing themselves for us to talk about. So until next time, thanks for getting hammered responsibly. This has been a Nebulous Media Podcast.